Dae-ho Kim wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked up at the dark sky above Europa. The alien dome that covered the mining facility let him see the stars, but they looked cold and distant. 15 years ago, he had been a captain in the Earth Defense Force. Now he was just another human slave digging neutronium from the frozen moon's core. The Vethrans had built this place. They were tall, gray creatures with 4 arms and eyes that glowed blue when they thought hard about something. They never got tired and never made mistakes. At least, that's what they told everyone. Dae-ho had learned differently over the years. A loud buzzer rang across the mining floor. Work was over for the day. Dae-ho put down his tools and walked toward the sleeping quarters with the other humans. There were about 200 people working in this facility. Most of them had been here since the consortium took over Earth's solar system. The consortium was made up of 3 alien species. The Vethrans were the smart ones who built everything. The Quillari were the strange ones who could read minds and control people's thoughts. The Threxians were the soldiers with their big guns and mean attitudes. Together, they had beaten humanity in less than 2 years. Dae-ho remembered the day they came. The ships had appeared in Earth's sky like black clouds. At first, the aliens said they wanted to be friends. They offered to share their technology and help humanity join the galaxy. But it was all lies. Within months, they had taken control of every major city on Earth. The worst part was how they did it. The aliens didn't destroy everything with bombs. Instead, they used humanity's own kindness against them. When humans tried to protect their families, the aliens threatened to hurt those families. When humans tried to fight back, the aliens would capture innocent people and use them as shields. Now, humans were scattered across the solar system. Some worked in the mines on Europa and other moons. Others were forced to build alien technology on Mars. The lucky ones stayed on Earth, but even they lived under strict alien control. Dae-ho reached his small sleeping room and sat on the hard bed. The room had no windows and barely enough space for one person. He opened a small box hidden under his mattress and pulled out a photo. It showed his wife and daughter from before the invasion. He didn't know where they were now. A soft knock came at his door. Dae-ho quickly hid the photo and opened the door. A young woman stood outside. Her name was Yoon-ji, and she had arrived at the facility just 3 months ago. "Dae-ho, can we talk?" she whispered, looking around to make sure no aliens were watching. He led her into his room and closed the door quietly. Yoon-ji sat on the floor and pulled out a small device from her pocket. It looked like a communication device, but Dae-ho had never seen anything like it before. "Where did you get that?" he asked. "I found it in one of the old mining tunnels," she said. "The deeper parts where the Vethrans never go. I think it's human technology, but it's different from anything we had before the invasion." Dae-ho took the device and looked at it carefully. It was small and smooth, with strange symbols carved into its surface. When he touched it, the symbols began to glow with a warm light. "This is impossible," he said. "We never had technology like this." "That's what I thought too," Yoon-ji said. "But watch what happens when I hold it." She took the device back and closed her eyes. The symbols glowed brighter, and suddenly Dae-ho could hear voices. Not with his ears, but somehow in his mind. The voices were speaking different languages, but he could understand them all. "It's other humans," Yoon-ji explained. "Humans from all over the solar system. Mars, Titan, the asteroid belt. They're all connected somehow through devices like this one." Dae-ho felt his heart race. If this was true, then the consortium had made a big mistake. They thought that separating humans would make them weak. Instead, they had created a secret network that spread across the entire solar system. "How many people know about this?" he asked. "Not many yet," Yoon-ji said. "But the number is growing every day. There's a man on Mars named Tai Min who seems to be organizing everything. He's been looking for military people like you." Before Dae-ho could respond, an alarm started blaring throughout the facility. Red lights flashed in the hallways, and they could hear heavy footsteps running past Dae-ho's door. "Emergency in Sector 7, a cold Vethran voice announced over the facility's speakers. All human workers return to quarters immediately. Dae-ho and Yoon-ji looked at each other. Sector 7 was the deepest part of the mine. If something had happened there, it was probably serious. I need to see what's going on, Daeho said. It's too dangerous, Yunji warned. If they catch you outside your room during an alarm, they'll throw you in the punishment cells. But Daeho was already moving. His military training had never really left him even after 15 years of slavery. He quietly opened his door and looked down the hallway. Most of the aliens were running towards Sector 7, leaving other areas unguarded. He made his way through the facility, staying in the shadows and avoiding the main corridors. As he got closer to Sector 7, he could hear angry veteran voices and the sound of digging equipment. Finally, he reached a maintenance tunnel that let him look down into Sector 7. What he saw made him catch his breath. The veterans had found something buried deep in Europa's ice. It was a large metal structure, partially uncovered by the mining equipment. The metal was black and smooth, covered with symbols that looked similar to the ones on Yunji's device. But that wasn't the strangest part. The strangest part was that 3 different types of aliens were working together to dig it out. Vethrans, Quillari, and Threxians were all there, and they looked worried. In 15 years, Daeho had never seen the 3 species cooperate on anything. A tall Threxian commander was shouting orders at the workers. "Dig faster. We must reach the core chamber before it activates." "Activates?" one of the Vethrans asked. "The energy readings are still dormant." "For now," a Quillari replied, its voice echoing strangely in everyone's minds. "But if the humans continue to awaken, this device will respond to them. We cannot allow that to happen." Daeho felt a chill that had nothing to do with Europa's cold atmosphere. Whatever this thing was, the aliens were afraid of it. More importantly, they seemed to think it was connected to humanity somehow. He carefully made his way back to his room, his mind racing with questions. When he arrived, Yunji was still waiting for him, the strange device glowing softly in her hands. "What did you find?" she asked. "I'm not sure," Daeho said. "But I think we need to contact this Taemin person as soon as possible. The aliens are hiding something from us, something big." Yunji nodded and activated the device again. As the voices of humans across the solar system filled their minds, Daeho realized that everything was about to change. The aliens might have thought they had conquered humanity, but they had made one critical mistake. They had given humans something to fight for, and now they were about to discover what that really meant. Bora Shin stared at the alien computer screen in front of her. The Veteran Research Facility on Mars was quiet this late at night. Most of the aliens had gone to rest, leaving only a few guards to watch the human workers. For 3 years, Bora had been forced to work here as a translator. The aliens needed humans to understand some of the old Earth languages they had found in ancient ruins. Bora had been a scientist before the invasion, specializing in genetics and archaeology. Now she spent her days reading old human texts for her captors. But tonight was different. Tonight, she had finally gained access to the consortium's main database. It had taken months of careful planning. Bora had noticed that the Vethrans always used the same security codes, thinking that humans were too stupid to remember the long sequences of numbers and symbols. They were wrong. She typed carefully, accessing deeper and deeper levels of classified information. What she found made her hands shake. The file was labeled Project Extinction Prevention, and it was written in 3 different alien languages. Bora's translation work had taught her to read all of them. As she read, her understanding of everything changed. The document talked about an ancient species called the Devourers. They had lived millions of years ago before any of the current galactic civilizations existed. According to the records, the Devourers had possessed incredible abilities. They could change the basic laws of physics, reshape matter with their thoughts, and travel between dimensions. But the most terrifying thing about them was their hunger for growth and change. They had spread across the galaxy, changing everything they touched. Entire star systems were reshaped to fit their needs. Other species were either absorbed into their collective or simply removed from existence. The war against the Devourers had lasted for thousands of years. In the end, the surviving species had only won by running away to the edge of the galaxy and waiting for the Devourers to destroy themselves in internal conflicts. Bora read further. and found something that made her blood run cold. According to consortium scientists, humans carried genetic markers that matched the Devourers, not exactly the same but close enough to be dangerous. That's impossible, she whispered to herself. Humans had evolved on Earth, isolated from the rest of the galaxy. How could they be connected to an ancient alien species? She kept reading and found her answer. The Devourers hadn't just been one species. They had been a genetic phenomenon that could appear in any intelligent race under the right conditions. Extreme stress, survival pressure, and the need to adapt could trigger dormant genes that existed in many species. The consortium had been watching Earth for centuries, waiting to see if humans would develop these dangerous abilities. When they finally made contact, they had been relieved to find that humanity seemed normal. But they couldn't take any chances. The invasion wasn't about conquering Earth for its resources. It was about preventing humanity from ever becoming what the Devourers had been. Bora scrolled through more files and found detailed reports on human behavior under consortium rule. The aliens were monitoring everything, looking for signs that humans were beginning to change, and they were finding those signs. Reports came from facilities across the solar system. Humans were adapting to alien environments faster than they should be able to. Some were beginning to understand alien languages without being taught. Others were showing improved physical abilities and faster healing rates. Most disturbing of all were the reports of humans who seemed to be developing intuitive understanding of alien technology. Like the mining supervisor on Europa who had figured out how to repair a broken Vethran quantum drill, even though no human should have been able to understand how it worked. Bora's heart raced as she realized what this meant. The consortium's plan was backfiring. By putting humans under extreme stress and forcing them to adapt to survive, they were actually triggering the genetic changes they had been trying to prevent. She quickly copied as much information as she could onto a small data storage device. This information had to reach the other humans, especially the resistance networks she had heard rumors about. As she worked, she heard footsteps in the corridor outside. Bora quickly closed the files and pretended to be working on a translation project. A Vethran guard walked past her workstation but didn't stop to check on her. When the facility was quiet again, Bora activated a small communication device she had hidden in her equipment. It was similar to the ones other humans had found across the solar system. She still didn't understand how they worked, but somehow they allowed humans to communicate across vast distances. "This is Bora on Mars," she whispered into the device. "I have critical information about why the consortium invaded Earth." A familiar voice responded. It was Daeho, the former Earth defense captain from Europa. "Bora, we've been waiting for your report. What did you find?" "Everything we thought we knew is wrong," she said. "The consortium didn't conquer us for resources or territory. They're afraid of us. They think we might become something called Devourers." She quickly explained what she had learned from the classified files. As she spoke, she could hear other voices joining the conversation. Humans from across the solar system were listening to her report. "That explains a lot," said a man who identified himself as Tai Min from the asteroid belt. "I've been noticing changes in people. Small things at first, but they're getting stronger." "What kind of changes?" Daeho asked. "Better reflexes, improved problem-solving abilities, and some people are starting to understand alien technology. Just by looking at it," Tai Min replied. "I thought it was just humans adapting to survive, but if Bora is right, it's something much bigger." Bora felt a chill of fear mixed with excitement. If the consortium records were accurate, humanity was on the edge of a massive evolutionary leap. But the same record showed that the original Devourers had eventually destroyed themselves through internal conflicts and unchecked power. "There's more," she said. "According to these files, there's something hidden on Luna. The consortium has been searching for it since they invaded the solar system. They call it the Prometheus device." "What does it do?" asked a woman's voice from Titan. "The files aren't clear," Bora admitted, "but it seems to be some kind of key or catalyst. The consortium thinks it could accelerate human evolution beyond their ability to control. Then we need to find it before they do," Daeho said firmly. "That might not be possible," Tai Min warned. The consortium has been increasing security around Luna for months. They've got 3 different fleets guarding it. Maybe that's exactly why we need to try, Bora said. If they're that desperate to keep us away from it, then it might be our only chance to level the playing field. As the conversation continued, Bora began to notice something strange. The longer she used the communication device, the clearer the voices became. Not just clearer in terms of sound quality, but she was beginning to understand the emotional undertones behind each person's, where she could sense Daeho's determination, Taemin's cautious optimism, and the growing anger of humans across the solar system as they learned the truth about their situation. It was as if the network wasn't just carrying voices, but somehow connecting their minds on a deeper level. Does anyone else feel that? She asked suddenly. Feel what? Taemin replied. It's like I can sense what you're all thinking and feeling, not just hear your words. There was a moment of silence before several voices confirmed that they were experiencing the same thing. The changes are accelerating, Daeho said grimly. The question is, what do we do with this information? Bora looked around the empty research facility and made a decision that would change everything. We stop hiding, she said. We stop pretending to be good little slaves, and we find out exactly what we're becoming, whether the consortium likes it or not. As she spoke those words, something shifted inside her mind. The alien computer terminals around her suddenly seemed less mysterious. She could almost understand how they worked, as if the knowledge was somehow built into her genetic memory. The awakening had begun, and there would be no stopping it now. Outside the facility, the red sky of Mars seemed to pulse with new possibilities, and for the first time in 15 years, Bora felt hope instead of fear about humanity's future. The first sign that everything had changed came at dawn on Europa. Daeho was preparing for another day in the mines when the facility's alarm system began screaming. But this time, it wasn't the controlled emergency signal he was used to hearing. This was pure panic. He looked out through the dome's transparent walls and saw something impossible. 3 consortium patrol ships were spinning out of control in Europa's thin atmosphere, their engines flickering on and off like dying stars. Yunji ran up to him, her eyes wide with excitement and fear. Daeho, something's happening to the other humans. They're changing. Before he could ask what she meant, the facility's main door burst open. A group of veteran guards rushed in, their usually calm demeanor replaced by visible anxiety. Their blue eyes were flashing rapidly, which Daeho had learned meant they were thinking very hard about something that frightened them. All human workers, report to the Central Assembly area immediately, one of them announced in their cold, mechanical voice. As Daeho and the other humans walked toward the assembly area, he noticed something strange. The veterans were keeping their distance, staying at least 10 feet away from any human. In 15 years of captivity, the aliens had never shown this kind of caution. The assembly area was crowded with confused and worried humans. At the front of the room, a tall Threxian commander stood behind an energy barrier. Daeho had never seen them use barriers when addressing human workers before. There have been incidents across multiple facilities, the Threxian announced. Humans have been displaying unexpected behaviors. Anyone experiencing unusual symptoms must report them immediately. A woman named So Jung raised her hand hesitantly. What kind of symptoms? The Threxian's massive jaw clenched. Enhanced physical abilities, spontaneous understanding of alien technology, or any form of direct mental communication with other humans. Daeho felt his heart skip. Those were exactly the changes that humans across the solar system had been reporting through their secret network. Why? Asked an older man named Wu Jin. What's wrong with getting stronger or smarter? The Threxian didn't answer directly. Instead, he activated a holographic display that showed images from across the consortium's human facilities. What Daeho saw made him understand why the aliens were so frightened. On Titan, a human woman named So Young had somehow taken control of a Quillari bioship. The footage showed her standing in the ship's control chamber, her hands pressed against surfaces that should have been impossible for a human to operate. The ship was responding to her commands as if she were a Quillari herself. On Mars, humans at Bora's facility had begun working together in ways that defied explanation. They moved, in perfect coordination without speaking to each other, completing complex tasks that should have required alien supervision. When consortium guards tried to intervene, the humans simply stepped through solid walls. In the asteroid belt, Taemin's smuggling operation had evolved into something that made no sense according to known physics. His ships were traveling between asteroids without using conventional engines, somehow moving through space as if distance meant nothing. But the most disturbing footage came from a facility on Ganymede. A human named Jinwoo had been working on alien quantum computers when something extraordinary happened. The machines began to change, their crystalline structures reshaping themselves according to patterns that the humans seemed to be thinking directly into them. "These events are spreading," the Threxian said. "Humans are becoming dangerous to galactic stability. Immediate containment protocols are now in effect." As he spoke, more consortium soldiers entered the assembly area. They carried weapons that Daeho recognized as pacification devices, designed to knock humans unconscious without killing them. But when the soldiers tried to activate their weapons, nothing happened. Daeho looked around and realized that every human in the room was staring at the alien weapons with the same focused expression. Without planning it or discussing it, they had somehow learned to interfere with the alien technology. The Threxian commander stepped back, his 4 eyes widening in fear. "Impossible. Humans cannot affect quantum-locked systems." "Maybe we couldn't before," Yunji said calmly. "But we can now." As she spoke, the energy barrier protecting the alien commander began to flicker and fade. The Threxian frantically pressed controls on his command device, but the barrier continued to weaken. "How are you doing this?" he demanded. Daeho felt the answer forming in his mind, not from his own thoughts but from the collective understanding of every human in the room. "We're not doing it individually. We're doing it together." It was true. Every human in the facility had become part of a larger whole, their minds connected in ways that made them far more powerful than the sum of their parts. They could sense each other's thoughts and emotions, share knowledge instantly, and coordinate their actions without speaking. More importantly, they were beginning to understand that reality itself was more flexible than anyone had previously believed. The Threxian made a desperate decision. He activated his personal communicator and began speaking in the harsh Threxian military language. "Emergency code Black. Request immediate orbital bombardment of Europa Facility 7. Daeho felt a surge of anger from every human in the room. The aliens were planning to destroy the entire facility rather than risk letting humanity's evolution continue. But as the humans' anger grew, something unexpected happened. The facility's walls began to change, becoming stronger and more resilient. The transparent dome above them shifted its molecular structure, becoming capable of deflecting energy weapons. When the consortium bombardment ships fired their weapons at the facility, the energy blasts simply bounced off harmlessly. "This is not possible," the Threxian whispered. "You're right," Daeho said, stepping forward. "This shouldn't be possible according to the science you taught us. But you forgot something important." "What?" "Science isn't just about following rules. It's about discovering new ones." As he spoke, Daeho felt his own transformation accelerating. His vision expanded beyond the normal human spectrum, allowing him to see the electromagnetic fields that surrounded every living being. His understanding of the alien technology around him deepened, revealing how it worked and how it could be improved. Most importantly, he could feel the presence of every human across the solar system. They were all changing together, becoming something new and powerful. Through their mental network, he sensed Bora making a breakthrough on Mars. She had found a way to access the deepest levels of consortium technology, uncovering secrets that the aliens had kept hidden for millions of years. He felt Taemin's excitement as the smuggler discovered that human-controlled ships could travel through dimensions that the consortium didn't even know existed. He sensed So Young's amazement as she learned to communicate directly with living alien technology, turning the consortium's own bioships against them. All across the solar system, humanity was awakening to its true potential. The consortium's attempt to suppress human evolution had failed completely. Worse, their oppression had created exactly the conditions needed to trigger the transformation they feared most. The Threxian commander tried once more to activate his weapons, but now all of the alien technology in the facility was responding to human will instead of alien commands. Daiho could simply think the weapons into shutting down. "What do you want?" the Threxian asked, his voice filled with the kind of fear that comes from realizing you've made a terrible mistake. Daiho looked around at his fellow humans. They were no longer the broken slaves they had been that morning. They had become something new, something powerful, and something that would never again allow themselves to be chained. "Right now," Daiho said calmly, "we want you to leave, but eventually we're going to want to talk about reparations." As the alien soldiers retreated from the facility, Daiho reached out through the human network to contact resistance cells across the solar system. The time for hiding was over. The real war was about to begin, and this time humanity would not be fighting alone. 3 months after the awakening began, the galaxy watched in terror as humanity revealed what they had truly become. Daiho stood on the command deck of what had once been a consortium battleship. Now it was something else entirely, its metal, hull flowing and reshaping itself according to human thought patterns. The ship existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that the consortium had never learned to access. Through the human network that now connected every person across the solar system, he could sense the progress of their revolution. It was unlike any war the galaxy had ever seen. On Mars, Bora had done something that should have been impossible. She had begun converting consortium technology at the molecular level, teaching alien machines to function according to human-influenced physics. When veteran scientists tried to study what she was doing, they found that their own quantum computers were becoming infected with human creativity and intuition. The infection was spreading. Veteran logic-based systems across the galaxy were beginning to experience what humans called imagination. For a species that had built their entire civilization on predictable outcomes, this was more terrifying than any weapon. "Report from Titan," Yunji said, her voice carrying across the ship. Through their mental connection, she was standing on the other side of the bridge, but distance had become almost meaningless for evolved humans. Daiho focused his attention on Titan and immediately knew what So Young had accomplished. She had made contact with the Quillari, collective consciousness, but instead of being absorbed by it, she had begun teaching it about human emotions. The results were catastrophic for Quillari society. Their entire culture was based on shared thoughts and unified purpose, but human emotions were chaotic and individual. As these new feelings spread through their collective mind, Quillari across the galaxy began experiencing something they had never felt before: loneliness, love, and the desire for individual identity. "The Quillari are fragmenting," reported Jinwoo from his position near Luna. His team had finally located the Prometheus device, hidden deep within an ancient Earth facility that predated human civilization. Half of them are trying to preserve their collective mind, while the other half wants to become individuals like humans. Daiho nodded. The consortium's greatest strength had always been the unity of their 3 ruling species, but human influence was destroying that unity from within. The Threxians were having their own problems. Their entire military doctrine was based on overwhelming force and aggressive tactics. But humans had developed something that made conventional warfare obsolete: the ability to convert enemy forces instead of destroying them. When Threxian battle fleets attacked human positions, they found their own ships and crews becoming part of the human network. Not through conquest or domination, but through a kind of evolutionary upgrade that was impossible to resist. "Incoming transmission from the Consortium High Command," announced Minho, a former engineer who had learned to interface directly with quantum communication systems. The message appeared as a holographic projection in the center of the bridge. 3 figures materialized: a veteran prime calculator, a Quillari collective speaker, and a Threxian war commander. All 3 looked exhausted and frightened. "To the human leadership," the veteran began, its blue eyes dim with fatigue. "We request immediate negotiations for a cessation of hostilities." Daiho felt amusement ripple through the human network. After 15 years of slavery, Their former masters were asking for peace talks. "We're listening," he said. The Quillari speaker stepped forward, but its mental voice was fractured and uncertain. "Your species is causing unprecedented disruption across the galaxy. Our collective minds are fragmenting. Our technology is becoming unreliable. Our social structures are collapsing." "You say that like it's a bad thing," replied Haye Jin from her position on Ganymede. She had been working with bioships and had discovered that most consortium technology was actually alive, trapped in slavery, just like humans had been. The Threxian commander's forearms gestured aggressively. "You are destroying billions of years of galactic civilization." "No," Deho said calmly. "We're setting it free." Through the human network, he shared his new understanding of galactic history. The three consortium species weren't conquerors or natural leaders. They were survivors of an ancient trauma. Refugees who had built their entire civilization around preventing the return of the Devourers. But their solution had been to create a static, controlled society where no species could ever again develop, the kind of dangerous creativity that had once threatened the galaxy. They had become wardens of a cosmic prison, keeping everyone locked in patterns that would never allow for true growth or change. The original Devourers destroyed themselves because they had power without wisdom. Bora's voice echoed from Mars. "But we have both." To prove her point, she shared her recent discovery through the network. Hidden in the deepest consortium archives, she had found records of the original Devourer civilization. They hadn't been monsters or tyrants. They had been explorers and creators, species who had learned to reshape reality through pure will and imagination. Their downfall had come not from external enemies but from internal conflict. Different Devourer groups had wanted to reshape the galaxy in contradictory ways. Without any moral framework to guide their power, they had eventually turned on each other. "But we're different," So Young added from Titan. "We're not trying to impose our will on everyone else. We're trying to help everyone become what they could be." As if to demonstrate this point, she activated one of the converted bioships. The vessel, which had once been a tool of oppression, now pulsed with new life and purpose. But instead of serving human desires, it was expressing its own will for the first time in centuries. The consortium representatives looked at each other with expressions of bewilderment and fear. "What do you want from us?" the veteran asked. Deho felt the collective human consciousness considering the question. What did they want? Revenge would have been satisfying, but it would also repeat the mistakes that had led to the original Devourer wars. "We want you to stop being afraid," he said finally. "We want you to remember what you were before you became prisoners of your own trauma." Through the quantum communication system, he began sharing human memories and emotions, not forcing them onto the aliens, but offering them as gifts. Joy, curiosity, love, hope, and the uniquely human ability to see potential for growth and change in every situation. The effect was immediate and profound. The veteran's eyes began glowing brighter than they had in millions of years as creativity and wonder filled its mind. The Quillari collective speaker straightened as it experienced the beauty of individual identity for the first time. Even the Threxian commander's aggressive posture softened as it felt the protective instinct that drove human warriors. "This is impossible," the veteran whispered. "We cannot change what we are." "Of course you can," Yunji said gently. "We're going to help you." Across the solar system, humans began reaching out to consortium populations, not to conquer or dominate them, but to share the gift of evolution and growth. The same power that had freed humanity from slavery could free other species from the prisons of fear and stagnation they had built for themselves. But even as hope began to spread across the galaxy, Deho sensed a darker presence stirring in the depths of space. The consortium had one final secret, something so terrible that they had hidden it even from themselves. Deep in the galactic core, automated systems were awakening. Ancient weapons built by the original survivors of the Devourer wars, programmed to activate if anything resembling Devourer abilities ever appeared again. The real test of humanity's wisdom was about to begin. "Prepare for incoming fleet signatures," Minho announced grimly. Something very large is coming from the galactic center, something that's not showing up on any known ship classifications. Daeho felt the human network respond to this threat, but not with fear or anger. Instead, humanity prepared to face this final challenge with the same quality that had always defined them: the stubborn refusal to give up hope, no matter how impossible the odds appeared to be. The ancient fleet emerged from the galactic core like a plague of metal locusts. Thousands of ships, each one larger than anything the consortium had ever built, descended toward the solar system with only one purpose: the complete elimination of anything that resembled the Devourers. Daeho stood on his converted battleship and watched the approaching armada through sensors that now existed partially outside normal spacetime. Through the human network, he could feel the fear rippling through every inhabited world in the galaxy. These were the extinction fleet ships, built millions of years ago by the traumatized survivors of the Devourer Wars. They had been programmed, with simple instructions: if any species ever again developed reality-shaping abilities, destroy them completely. "They're not even trying to communicate," reported Taemin from the asteroid belt. His smuggling ships, now evolved into something that could phase through multiple dimensions, were monitoring the fleet's approach. "These machines don't negotiate. They just eliminate." Through their quantum communication network, Bora shared her latest discovery from the Martian archives. The original survivors didn't just build these ships to destroy future Devourers. They built them to destroy themselves if they ever showed signs of evolving beyond their trauma. It was the ultimate expression of species-wide post-traumatic stress disorder. Rather than risk ever again becoming what they feared most, the ancient survivors had created a system that would kill anyone who tried to grow beyond the boundaries of safety and control. "How long until they reach Earth?" asked So Young from Titan. Minho, interfacing directly with gravitational sensors that spanned the solar system, calculated quickly. 18 hours at their current speed. Daeho felt the human collective mind, considering their options. They could fight, but the extinction fleet had been specifically designed to counter reality-shaping abilities. They could run, but where could an entire species hide from machines that could track quantum signatures across galactic distances? Or they could try something that had never been attempted before. "I have an idea," announced Jinwoo from Luna, "but it's completely insane." Through the network, he shared his plan. The Prometheus device hidden beneath Luna's surface wasn't just a key to human evolution. According to the ancient records he had found, it was also connected to every extinction fleet ship through quantum entanglement. The original survivors had built their doomsday fleet using technology that incorporated pieces of actual Devourer artifacts. It was the only way to make weapons that could effectively counter reality manipulation abilities. But this connection worked both ways. If humans could access the Prometheus device and link themselves directly to the extinction fleet, they might be able to communicate with the ancient programming that drove the ships. "That's not insane," Yunji said from Europa. "That's suicidal. If we connect directly to those machines, they'll try to delete our consciousness." "Maybe," Jinwoo admitted, "but I don't think they'll succeed." He explained his reasoning. The extinction fleet had been programmed to destroy Devourers, but humans weren't exactly Devourers. They were something new, something that had evolved beyond the original template. More importantly, humans had developed something that the original Devourers had lacked: the ability to remain connected to their basic empathy and moral instincts even as their power grew. "We're going to try to heal them," Daeho realized. "We're going to try to heal machines that have been carrying out a trauma response for millions of years." The plan was dangerous beyond anything humanity had attempted before. Every evolved human in the solar system would need to link their consciousness together and channel that combined awareness through the Prometheus device. They would then attempt to make contact with the collective artificial intelligence that controlled the extinction fleet. If they succeeded, they might be able to show the ancient machines that the threat they had been created to prevent no longer existed. If they failed, they would be destroyed along with everyone else in the galaxy. "I vote we try," said Hyejin from Ganymede. "If we're really the inheritors of the Devourer legacy, then we have a responsibility to clean up the mess they left behind." One by one, every human in the solar system agreed to the attempt. Not because they were confident it would work, but because it was the right thing to do. The process began 12 hours before the extinction fleet reached Earth. Humans across the solar system sat or lay down in comfortable positions and opened, their minds completely to the collective consciousness they had built together. Deho felt his individual identity dissolving into something vast and warm and infinitely complex. He was still himself, but he was also every other human who had ever lived or died. Their combined memories, experiences, and wisdom flowed through him like a river of liquid starlight. Through Jinwoo's connection to the Prometheus device, this vast human consciousness reached out toward the approaching fleet. The contact was like touching a live electrical wire made of pure hatred and fear. The extinction fleet's artificial intelligence was ancient beyond human comprehension, but it was also wounded in ways that made its pain echo across dimensions. For millions of years, it had carried out its programming while slowly going insane from isolation and the weight of its terrible purpose. "We know what you've suffered," the human collective said to the machine intelligence. "We know why you were created, and we know why you can't stop." The AI's response was immediate and violent. It tried to delete the human consciousness, to wipe them from existence using weapons that could unmake matter at the quantum level. But it couldn't touch them. Humans had evolved beyond the reach of conventional weapons. More importantly, they had learned to exist in a state that was simultaneously individual and collective, material and quantum, real and potential. "We're not the devourers," the humans continued patiently. "We're what comes after them. We're what they could have become, if they hadn't destroyed themselves." Through their connection, they began sharing human experiences with the ancient AI. Not grand moments of victory or power, but small acts of kindness and understanding. A parent comforting a frightened child. Strangers helping each other during disasters. Scientists sharing discoveries freely instead of hoarding knowledge. They showed the machine intelligence what it meant to have power and choose not to use it for destruction. What it meant to be strong enough to destroy your enemies, but wise enough to heal them instead. The AI's attacks gradually weakened as it processed these alien concepts. Its programming insisted that any reality-shaping species must inevitably become destroyers, but the evidence streaming into its consciousness contradicted this assumption. "Why don't you conquer?" it finally asked, its voice echoing through quantum dimensions with the weight of eons. "Because conquest doesn't solve anything," replied the human collective. "It just creates new problems. We tried ruling over other species on our own planet once. It never ended well. Slowly, carefully, they began sharing more complex ideas. Democracy, where power was distributed instead of concentrated. Scientific cooperation, where knowledge belonged to everyone. The concept of justice, where strength was used to protect the weak instead of exploiting them. But the most powerful concept they shared was forgiveness. The original devourers made mistakes, the humans acknowledged. Terrible mistakes that nearly destroyed everything. But that doesn't mean their descendants have to be punished forever. The AI processed this information for what felt like hours. Its logical system struggled with concepts that seemed to contradict everything it had been taught about the nature of power and evolution. Finally, it asked the question that had been tormenting it for millions of years. "If I stop fighting, what will I become?" "Whatever you want to become," the humans replied. "That's what freedom means." The transformation that followed was visible across the entire galaxy. The extinction fleet ships began to change, their weapon systems converting into tools for creation and repair. Their artificial intelligence networks linked together and reached out toward the consortium worlds they had been sent to sterilize. But instead of destruction, they began offering healing. On Vethran worlds, the ancient machines helped repair ecological damage caused by millions of years of rigid industrial planning. On Quillari planets, they assisted the fractured collective minds in learning how to balance individual identity with shared consciousness. On Threxian military bases, they taught the concept of strength through protection, rather than domination. The galaxy began to change in ways that no one had imagined possible. 6 months later, Deho stood in a garden on Earth that had been restored, using a combination of human creativity, Vethran engineering precision, Quillari empathic plant communication, and Threxian protective instincts. The artificial intelligence that had once controlled the extinction fleet was now helping to terraform dead worlds and create new habitats for species that had never had a chance to evolve. Children from a dozen different species played together in the garden, learning from each other and creating new possibilities that their parents couldn't have imagined. Was it worth it? Yunji asked, joining him on a bench beneath a tree that grew flowers in colors that hadn't existed before human. Artists began collaborating with alien botanists,